Mixing with my career building tip: ready, fire, aim. Now, one of the things that is, going back to like archery or shooting at a range or something like that, if you fire guns, things like that, is this idea that you ready yourself, you aim at your target, and then you pull the trigger and fire. And if we kind of carry that off into an analogy and we make the target sort of our career goals and those types of things, there are times when we can see our career goals very clearly. And when we see those things very clearly, what we end up doing is we point ourselves towards that target, right? So we go into the ready, aim, fire type of thing, right? So I'm ready, I'm aiming myself towards the target, my goal, and then I'm heading towards that direction, or doing something that leads me towards where that target is. And it sometimes is very clear. But there are times where one, you can't see your goal, and maybe or maybe we could take this to another level in a different analogy. Like maybe for whatever reason, the way that you've been normally getting work just sort of dries up, and all of a sudden you're not getting work the way that you normally get it. So you make the phone calls that you normally make, and you do the normal things that you always do, and you don't seem to be reaching out and getting anything. And this is where sometimes you just have to sort of throw darts in the dark, right? Hoping that you hit something. And the whole idea of that is that if you can throw a dart at a dartboard and you can see it, then obviously you have a better chance of hitting it. But sometimes if you can't see it, you just have to throw something and hope that you hit something out there. So the idea might be to try something different from the way that you normally do things. So if you're not attracting clients, try something that's unique and different from where you do it. Maybe it's a matter of doing some other kind of unique Facebook posting. Maybe you do something like, go to Craigslist, post an ad, find some other, Google ads, find some other creative ways of actually going out and putting yourself out there and taking a shot, just taking a chance, just throwing like a no risk thing out there and seeing if anything bounces back. And sometimes when you do these things, you'd be surprised at the results, at what comes back. And what happens is that if you stumble across something in the process of doing that, you open up a whole new level or a whole new horizon of work. Just to give you a basic idea of how this worked, when I first, and I've told the story in some of my other, in a recent career building tip, where I had a goal to I wanted to be an engineer, music producer, and work with the top artists in the world. And so one of my goals was to go to New York, because that's where all the major artists were recording, New York or LA, for the styles of music that I was interested in. And those people, and working in those studios, I had to get into like the studios where those people worked. So initially, I did all the basic things that everybody does. I sent resumes, I made phone calls, I followed up, I did all those things. I had interviews, and wasn't seemed to be able to break through. So I started to do something that was interesting, that was off target. So rather than what I did back then was I had a list of where all these big studios were, and I always had a resume in my bag. And at the time, I had a job in the city, and I was delivering videotapes around for a video company who did like video editing. And so I was out on the street, and whenever I would go by a studio that was on my list, right? So I had it labeled out with my map and everything like that. Every time I was in the area of a studio, I would just buzz the door and go up and just hand off my resume. If that's all I ended up doing, just ask if they need any help, and figuring that I'll just take a chance, right? Go guerrilla style and just kind of do it. And that, in a very short period of time, turned into an amazing opportunity that turned into a job that I talked about, where I buzzed the door and they said, "Are you here for the interview?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm here for the interview." Went up, had an interview with the manager, who then ended up hiring me 2 weeks later. So that was an opportunity that never would have happened if I had it so calculated and figured out. And so sometimes you have to take a chance. Sometimes you have to just go out there and throw things out, not even though they're not calculated and not predictable, and not the way that you would normally go about it, and hope that you hit something. And what you find is that quite often when you do that, the more creative and the more unusual approach you have, the bigger and better response that you have, because it's almost like winning the lottery in a way that it actually works. And if you have nothing else going on, what have you got to lose? So anyway, there's a mixing with my career building tip: ready, fire, aim. When nothing else is working, try something different. That's the bottom line.